Hey guys, welcome back to the Locker Room Podcast. I'm your host, Oliver, and today we have a very special guest. He's a NBA podcast producer for The Athletic, Andrew Schlecht. Now, I hope I got your name right there, the last name.
You got it. Yep.
We're going to talk about mainly OKC today. So we'll start with yesterday's game. Now, that was quite crazy and been waiting for a Trey Mann explosion, and I know that you have for a while. Just want your thoughts on Trey Mann's game yesterday.
That was a lot of fun. It was really good to see him get as many shots up as he did. It's just been, it's hard to describe because he has the game of a guy that's a gunner, right? Like he's a Jamal Crawford, Jordan Clarkson type of guy. However, he doesn't have the like heat check stuff in him. You know, he plays within himself. He tries to play within the offense. He plays like a traditional like role player, which I think is good, which means he's very coachable, but he just has a different mentality. And last night we got to see a different edge to him, which we're kind of been waiting for. And Mark Daigneault, the coach, has obviously been trying to push that out of him a little bit. Like even to the media, he's been saying like, I wish that he would take more shots. I wish that he would be more aggressive. And then we finally got to see it. Now, it was a great game. He made some crazy shots. I want to see it 10 more times the rest of the season, before I want to draw like a ton of conclusions on what type of player he's going to be. Because I mean, anybody can have a big explosion. Like, think about Paul Watson. Like a lot of Thunder fans have watched Paul Watson. They're like very unimpressed with what Paul Watson brings to the table. I think he scored over 30 points in a game for the Raptors last year. So anybody can do anything in one game. Do it again is what I would say to Trey if I were on the coaching staff today. Like, let's see it again. Like, you can do that again. Do it again. And he's going to have the chance. This next stretch, there's several guys that are out. He's going to have the minutes. He's going to have the shots. So if in these next 8 games that Shea is definitely out, he can do that a couple more times. I think that the conversation gets more interesting with Trey.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like with SGA out for the next 10 games, like you said, I feel like even if he doesn't get 20, 25 points, but he's at least taking 12 shots a game or 11 shots a game and getting his shots up and shooting somewhat efficiently, I feel like that's going to put him in good stead for when he probably goes back to the bench role when SGA comes back. And as an Aussie, I have to bring up Giddey. I loved watching Giddey run the offense, even though he had, I think, 6 turnovers. The ball looked like it was moving a lot better. I know SGA is a superstar. You can't really, all-star. You can't really say we're better without him because we're not. But I think it's just more enjoyable nearly to watch. At least last night's game. It might be a one-off instance, but that's what I feel like that. Do you agree? Or
I think I love watching Josh play. I think he's really fun. I think he can throw just about any pass that you want him to. He sees the floor differently. I mean, just that inbound pass to tie the game up at the end of regulation is like a big time example because that was not the play that Mark drew up. It was just a play that he and Kenrich saw. And they created it through a eye contact and a head nod. And he threw the ball right to him at the rim. And that's the kind of special stuff that this guy can do. And honestly, the Thunder haven't ever had a player like him. And so it's more fun to watch a guy like that. And part of it is like, we know what we're going to get from SGA. Like we've seen it all and we haven't seen everything Josh can do yet. And so it feels, I think most Thunder fans would probably want to see more of Josh, but really what we want to see is those two work together in a more cohesive way, which hasn't really happened yet. And there's still a lot of time. Honestly, I don't know that this iteration of Thunder will work for those two to have the on-court chemistry that we want. I think it's going to require them to draft somebody that can really shoot the basketball for it to work. Now, Trey and his growing confidence can be a piece of that puzzle too, but they really need somebody else, hopefully from the forward position, that can really shoot the basketball. And if they can get one of those guys, I think it'll unlock a little bit for both of them, because then they're not getting 2 and 3 defenders meeting them in the paint every time they try to drive. And they can create space for one another, and you have the other outlet, which is what they're really missing, because nobody guards Dort, nobody guards Jeremiah on the perimeter. People just don't care about those guys. So if they get somebody that the defense cares about, then I think it opens up everything for both of those guys.
Yeah, and I liked how it went to overtime. I was hoping that maybe I could see Trey Mann get a few more shots up in overtime, but
I know
Dort just had to take over. I was a bit, as I don't want to say I was disappointed, because I mean he did take over, but I just wanted to see Trey Mann put up shots in OT. But
I agree. I wanted him to get 30. I hate that he missed that free throw. I mean, that was painful to see him missing that free throw. And yeah, you want to see him get up there. But it was really funny after the game. And Joe Masato, the beat writer for the Oklahoman, put up a really funny video of this, is that you got to kind of see the chemistry between these young guys, which is cool. I would recommend that everybody go check it out, because you got to see Giddey was basically giving Trey a hard time for not getting 30. And Trey is like, got his head back. He's like rolling his eyes and shaking his head. It was like, okay, this is awesome. Right? This is great. So it was almost worth it for that moment.
And it felt like Baisley knew the plan to try and continue the tank at one stage. I think he put up 3 threes on the same possession, and they just all clanked.
Yeah, that play was pretty funny. It was like, no, Baisley, no. They kept throwing it back out to him. It's like, no.
I mean, I don't know if we want to be winning those games for the tankathon, but
I know that. So there is like that bit of like push and pull with winning games like this. I'm kind of the mind that if it's Trey and Lou and Josh winning these games, you can't really be too upset about it. If it were Mike Muscala hitting 6 threes, I would be losing my mind today. Like, honestly, I couldn't handle it. But the fact that it's the young guys, it's the rookies, it's Lou leading the way here. I mean, either they are going to become like the good players on the next iteration of the Thunder, or they're going to be good trade pieces to help them get to that level. So to me, those kind of wins are totally fine, even though they're not helpful in the tankathon standings. It's going to be, I mean, it's totally fine. I think that it shows good progress, and it shows that guys are buying in too, which is always helpful.
And one thing I have noticed this year is the amount of experience they have got in close games in the last 5 minutes or so. They're for the first year for a lot of these rookies, for such a young team to get this experience, basically their first year in, I think that it can only set them up in well in the future, at least, because I mean, you can't really practice that at all. So,
yep, I agree.
Moving on to the trade deadline's 10th of Feb. Now, you like to use the word pull the lever. Now, SGA being injured is kind of a lever in itself.
Yep.
But I had this discussion with one of the people that's usually on the podcast. He's a Knicks fan, and we had a disagreement about a month back, because I argued that Kenrich's value would arguably be a first-round pick, and he thought at best you'll get 2 seconds. And it's come out, obviously, Presti's looking for a first. But do you still? He's worth a lot to our team. Do you think we're overrating him, or is he actually worth a first-round pick? Or
I think he's probably worth like a late first-round pick. It's so difficult to gauge the value of a guy like this, because we're talking about the 6th or 7th man on a 15-win team. You know, it's not. That's where it becomes a little bit dicey. And like, there's other players out there that are, you know, they can be had. Like, we think about Eric Gordon. Like, Eric Gordon could be had. He's making a lot more money, which is a little bit more difficult to trade for. That's what makes, you know, Kenrich a lot easier to trade for, is that any team can take on $2 million. They can find $2 million to trade back, or they can trade more back to the Thunder. You know, the transaction is a lot easier. But you can find guys that can help. Like Terrence Ross is out there. Like Terrence Ross can help. I do think it would be worth it for a team like Phoenix or a team like Utah to acquire Kenrich for a first round pick. Now, if you're talking about a team that's just like trying to sneak into the playoffs or something like that, I don't know. But if a contender is looking for like the last piece of their title team, and it's just like, we need just one more two-way wing. Like the Jazz need a two-way wing really bad. I think Phoenix could use another two-way wing. I think if Phoenix got Kenrich, I would feel a lot more confident in their ability to win the title. And so to me, it's worth it for them. Now, the Thunder own Phoenix's pick this year, so it would have to be a pick later on. What is their appetite for trading a pick down the road? Like, I don't know. That becomes it. The thing about trading picks down the road is that good front offices, and Phoenix is a good one, they know what the draft looks like in 2026. Like, they know who these kids are. And if there's generational type talent, and you don't really know until you actually get up to like their senior year or junior year, but like they know who these kids are. And if they think that there's somebody big coming up, they'll be like, yeah, I don't know. Like we'll hold on to that. Like, I think a lot of teams have held on to a lot of different picks just because they know who's coming down the pipeline. So it just depends. It depends on the appetite. I think the most likely outcome, if they wanted to trade him, is they'd probably get 2 seconds. If they're willing to hold out, it's possible they could get a first from a team like Utah who's a little desperate, but it would be not just like a clean first rounder. It would be take back 12 million more. And like, that will be a part of the price that we're paying for the first rounder, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Looking a little bit into the future with that, if Kenrich, because obviously he wants to stay at Thunder, and do you think he would give a discount contract to the Thunder, or do you think he would go searching for the money when he's in his contract year?
I just don't know how much he'll demand, period. I think that the full mid-level, which is $9 million a year, might be the most that he could demand on the open market. In which case, depending on where the Thunder are, I think that it's possible that they want to pay that.
Yeah.
So because he's a bench player, it's hard to find a place where he would start. So I think that just as a bench player who's in the rotation, I don't think he'll be too terribly expensive.
Yeah. And obviously Dort's, he's going to get paid soon enough. What do you reckon the max is for his per year? 15 mil? Would you go much above that?
He's such a confusing player. I think he will get between 13 and 18. And I think it will largely depend on, I don't know. I mean, his agent did such a horrible job negotiating his last contract. It's hard to know where they'll land this time and what the market value is for him. Do they get to restricted free agency? Do they sign this deal in March? There's just a lot of questions with it. But I would guess that anywhere between 13 and 18 million, 18 would be pretty high, but still like not an untradeable contract. Still, he's a good player. I don't think that it would necessarily cripple the Thunder to do a deal like that with him. So that's kind of what I would expect. And if we see more of Lou from last night, where he's more aggressive, his defense looks better, then he'll be totally worth it.
Now, the final one, obviously OKC hasn't met the price minimum cap. Is that right? They haven't met the floor for the cap. Do you see them making many changes in the last week of trade deadline?
It's very possible that they get in on Joe Ingles or Serge Ibaka or somebody like that, where there's a team that's just needs to get off some money. They are able to send the Thunder a pick compensation, and that's it. It's hard for me to see them really going after anybody specifically. I think this is more of maybe somebody wants Kenrich so bad they'll pay a first rounder. Maybe somebody likes Ty Jerome, they'll give them like a top 45 protected second or something like that. I mean, those are the type of deals that we'd be looking at. It's like small potatoes or like money transactions, period, is kind of what we'll see. for a little while, honestly, with the Thunder, until they either want to make a big splash and move up in the draft, or they're ready to kind of push some chips in and go get somebody to help the team. And we're still a ways away from anything like that.
Yeah. I also wanted to touch on a fan favorite, Poku, of course.
Yeah.
Now I just want your thoughts on, because when I played basketball, I had quite an ugly jump shot, so I'm not the best judge of this, but his mechanics don't look that off. It looks relatively smooth. Do you think it's more of a mechanic issue, his shot, or it's more of a mindset and kind of issue?
I still think there's some strength components to it for him. And I do think it's more mindset stuff than it is anything else. Because I've watched him in one game with the G League. I went down and watched him here in OKC. I've seen him play all of his pro games, and he's such a strange player because he plays, he does things on the court that like screams that he's really confident. However, he will hang his head a lot, and it is just kind of concerning. Like when he makes a mistake, like you can just like visibly see him just like, oh, like he could just feels all of it.
Yeah.
And in basketball, like you have to have basically no memory at all. You make a mistake, who cares? Like the game is still going. Like you got to get back on defense. Like you got to be ready for the next play. And Josh is a great example of that, because Josh will make a bad pass, he will make a bad rotation, he'll throw a pass out of bounds, and you don't see him do anything but like scream the F word and run to the other end of the court. And then he's like ready to go. Like Poku, like you see him kind of pouting almost for a little bit, which is like super concerning to me. He's a really young player. He's still got time to mature and to develop, but he's not in the rotation right now at all. And they frankly need guys. They need guys in this rotation. And Poku's one that they've said that he's not in it. So I'm curious to see what that looks like over the next few weeks. Jeremiah's out with an injury. We haven't heard what's going on with Aaron Wiggins yet. He hurt his ankle last night. So with those two out, there's like clear minutes opening for Poku. And if we don't see him in the rotation at all, like that's a giant red flag. That's the biggest red flag that we've seen about Poku. So if I'm a Thunder fan, I'm watching really closely this weekend to see, like, does he even touch the court? Because if he doesn't, then it's a clear signal as to what the Thunder are thinking about him.
Yeah. Now, Giddey has obviously impressed this year, but I just want your thoughts. Do you think the perspective on his ceiling has changed since he's been drafted? So obviously, personally, I thought when he got drafted, the best he could be was a good starter. But I'm starting to think maybe if he develops a shot and tight handling, he could become an all-star. But just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've completely flipped. I didn't know honestly, I didn't know what he would be. I actually really liked him in the draft process, but I didn't know what he could be as a pro, because we hadn't seen what he looks like athletically next to any of these other guys. And he's putting up historic numbers for a rookie in terms of rebounding and assists. Like the list that you begin to look at with what he's on pace to do. Now he still has to do it.
Yeah.
But if he can do it, we're talking about a list of, less than 5 players in the NBA history that's done what he's done. And the type of players that are able to, and he's not like a non-scorer, which is what some people thought he might be. But if he can continue to score and continue to dish out assists and rebounds at the rate that he is, then there's pretty much nobody on the list that's achieved what he will have achieved that isn't an all-star, that isn't a really good player. Like maybe the worst like modern player that's put up these kind of stats is John Wall. And John Wall, the only reason that his career slowed down was because of injuries. So I think there is a really good chance that he is a star. I think that there's a I don't know. I would have said preseason like 5% chance this guy's a star.
Yeah.
Now I'm like 35% chance this guy's a star. Like there's like a pretty good chance that this guy can do it. Now, like you said, he's got to tighten up his handle. He's got to have better awareness on really both ends. Like he's really smart, really good. He just needs more reps, and that will get him there. But I do think that there is a world where Josh Giddey is making all-star teams and is a high impact player for a long time.
And I find it interesting. Like he's putting up these numbers, like watching his earlier games when I was just hoping he'd get that triple double that he eventually got. You'd be seeing him dropping passes off to Poku and JRE, and they'll be just blowing wide open layups. And it just, you put not necessarily a superstar big, but just a good big that can catch the ball and maybe even shoot. Like you got Muscala, but I feel like if you put, can't think of one off the top of my head, but say Towns, if you unrealistically put him there, I feel like Giddey's game would elevate to.
Without a doubt. He would crush. I mean, I think people's eyes would be opened if they saw him play with good players. I mean, we saw what he did last night just with Trey Mann. I don't want to take anything away from Trey Mann, but Trey Mann doesn't score 29 points if Josh Giddey isn't passing him open for as many threes as he was. Like that's one thing people need to understand about last night is that those cross the court passes that he was throwing, those one-handed cross-court passes that were hitting Trey right in the pocket where he's wide open. I don't know. What is there? 7, 8, 9 guys in the NBA that could throw that pass? There's not that many, especially from that size. Like this, I mean, he's creating stuff. And if he can create stuff for better players, then I think people will realize like what a really good player he is. And now, like turns the ball over too much. He's, his potential assists are crazy high. His actual assists are like pretty good. I mean, get him 2 or 3 legitimate NBA starters, then I think that he can really open up the entire floor for everybody.
And we'll, as Aussies, we'll claim him over Ben Simmons because I don't think anyone's a big fan of Ben Simmons.
What did you think of Josh before the draft? Like, what was like the buzz?
I know from Australia, I don't watch a great deal of NBL, but I knew there were a few young players coming through. Obviously, I started probably watching it when LaMelo was going through there. And there was old players like Johnny Flynn and all that in there. But I found it interesting. Like I knew he would be good, not this good, but I knew he'd be a starter probably in the NBA. And I felt it was a bit rough when they did his comp, and they basically said his downside was playing basketball.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm just like, that's a bit rough. Like you can put your shooting and stuff in there, but no, I thought he'd be a good starter. And then when he went to OKC, we did a live thing of it, I'm pretty sure. And I was just going off. I still haven't got my jersey from him yet, his jersey yet, but I need to add to my collection. But going to final topic for a fun little game, reverse standings. Now, OKC's, I think we're 4th, a game and a half behind the Rockets, which arguably we could actually go into 3rd, whether the Rockets are just inconsistent and you can't really tell. But hypothetically, if we get the 4th pick and we say get Clippers fall to a top 10 pick or go into a top 10 pick, would you be trading that for a top 2 pick, or would you hold on to those 2 top 10 picks?
I would definitely trade it. Definitely trade both for one of the 3 guys up there, especially if Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren are available. Like I would think that I would do that for one of those guys, because this draft, and it really kind of depends on where that, like if the pick is at like 10 or 11, like no brainer. If it's at 7, 6, 7, 8, like I'd have to watch these guys a little bit more. But there's a drop off certainly. And also I've watched a lot of Jaden Ivey. I need to watch him a little bit more too, because there's a chance that Jaden Ivey is like the best player in this draft. There's a world that exists where he is that.
Yeah.
And also there's a world where he goes in the top 3 or he goes top 2 even. Like that's not impossible. So there's just a lot of decisions to be made once they get there. But if it's available, and I think it's possible that Orlando might want to trade that pick and have more bites at the apple.
Yeah.
The Thunder need, and a lot of this will just depend on what Sam and his crew thinks of these players too.
Yeah.
Because as we saw in the last draft, like, we follow what Sam Vecini and what the guys at ESPN and all the other draft guys, look, we follow what they think. And a lot of them think similarly, and that's great. But the Thunder don't think the same way that those guys do.
Yeah.
You look at last year's draft, like nobody had Josh Giddey at 6. Nobody had Trey Mann as high as 16. Nobody had Jeremiah as high as 32. They just didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that you can look at where these guys were selected and think, you know what, Sam did a really good job. That's probably where those guys should have gone. And I think you can put a lot of trust in the Thunder front office to make the right decision there. And, on draft night, we had a big draft party here in OKC. There were a lot of people either extremely disappointed or like coming up to me asking for reassurance, all night. And, nobody knew. And even after Summer League, Summer League was such a bummer because we saw the 3 possessions of Josh and then he rolled his ankle and it's like, oh boy. And the rest of Summer League was a disaster. So you just don't know. But me personally, I would be aiming to get one of Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren. And I would do pretty much anything I could to get one of those guys.
Now I don't watch a great deal of college, but there's one player that hasn't declared for the draft. His last name's Sharp. I know that much because
Shaden Sharp.
My mate's name's Sharp. If he declared, would that change your mind, or would it still say you need to get into that top 3 to get Chet, or even though Sharp might not be the fit for our team, say an Orlando or someone wants him?
Mm-hmm. He definitely changes the equation. If he is who some people think he is, then certainly the Thunder should consider him. 6'5", jump out of the gym, crazy athlete, can create his own shot, can hit off the dribble, can hit off the catch. He's a great player, a great play finisher. I think that he and Ivy become a question then. But to me, it's still I think that Jabari Smith and Chet Holmgren can be game-changing bigs in the league. And the Thunder really need one of those kind of guys.
You haven't mentioned Banchero, not a Banchero fan, or just not the best fit for the team?
Paolo is I have a lot of questions about Paolo. Defensively, I don't know what he is at the NBA level. If he's not scoring, what is he doing? When you take away his first option, what does he do next? There's some character questions around him as well. I don't know that he's the guy that everybody thought he was going to be this year at Duke. Whereas Jabari and Chet have both elevated their games significantly. Where Apollo, I think everybody has way more questions about him today than we did in November.
Yeah. We'll end with a little game. Now, I can't have an American on and not play an Aussie slang game. Now, I'm pretty sure you know Lee Ellis pretty well.
So I know Lee.
I'm sure you'll know some of these. So I've got 10 words. First of all, how many do you think you'll get?
Oh, gosh. 2. I have no idea. I will not do well.
There's a couple of easy ones in here. So the first one, buggered.
Buggered. Is it like darn?
No, exhausted.
Exhausted.
I'm buggered. All right, so that's 0 for 1.
Oh, no.
Fairy floss.
Fairy floss?
I'm going to buy some fairy floss.
Some fairy floss.
You would have it at a school, a fair. I think you call it a fair in America. One of those.
Oh man, is it like cotton candy or something?
Exactly right. It is cotton candy.
Yes.
That's one. All right. Smoko. I'm going on Smoko.
I'm going on Smoko.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have no idea.
A small break, so it's just a short break, a 15-minute break when you're
like
working.
a smoke break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thongs. Now this is one that's the common one between America and Australia. If you can get this.
These are like flip flops, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's your 2 so far. You're 2 for 2, 2 out of 4. My shout. So when you're with your mates and you say, "Oh, it's my shout," what's that mean?
It's like my fault.
No, it means I'm buying the next round of beers.
Okay, gotcha.
Chockers.
Chockers.
This place is chockers.
Terrible.
Completely full.
Full. Okay, like chock full.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got you now.
This one might be an easy one. Maccas.
Mackers.
Actually, might not be because it's probably not the main option over there, but
no. Huh. Use it in a sentence for me.
I'm just going to get a feed at Macca's.
Oh man, I have no idea. I don't know what
McDonald's.
Mackers.
Yeah. It's just a lot easier to say.
That's awesome.
I'm heading down to the servo.
Servo?
Yeah.
It's like a gas station or something?
Yep, that's right.
Yes.
Bloody oath.
Say it again.
So someone's telling you something and you say bloody oath in response. It's hard to put into a sentence, but
yeah. Huh. So it's like an exclamation of some sort.
It's just agreeing with the person saying that's very true.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
That's a bit of a tough one. And the last one, piece of piss.
Say it again.
Piece of piss. Oh, this is going to be a piece of piss.
This is going to be awful.
No, it's going to be something really easy to do.
Oh. Oh man, I did horrible. That was really fun though.
You got 3 out of 10 though.
I'll take it. I'll take it and leave. That's awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us. I've really enjoyed actually speaking to you. I thought the nerves were going to get the better of me, but yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was fun, man. Thanks for having me on.
I'll be definitely listening, keeping up to your date with your podcast. Good luck with it all.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, man.
And hopefully OKC can be in the finals in the next 4 years.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I'd love that. It'd be great.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Next week, we'll be back with a Super Bowl special. So don't miss that. And we'll see you next week.